Hello everyone, thank you for joining me for today's graduation requirements webinar. My name is Fahad and I'll be taking you through the steps needed to configure graduation requirements in PCR Educator. This webinar is being recorded and will be available in our knowledge base, so if you want to review it again later on or share it with your team, you're more than welcome to do so. So in the webinar today, we're going to start by going through course types and levels. So course type levels are the foundation of building graduation requirements and also for building prerequisites. Then we'll go through graduation plans. So our system supports multiple graduation plans. You may have a standard one and you may have other ones that are that have more advanced requirements. And then we'll go through configuring graduation requirements and how they get associated with the graduation plans. And then we'll go through entering transfer credits. So if a student has taken certain classes at a different school and you want those classes to be counted as credits towards their graduation requirements, you can enter them as transfer credits and then they'll show up both in the graduation requirements queries, and they'll also show up on the transcript. After that, we'll review a sample transcript and how graduation requirements show up on a transcript, and then we'll look at some DAT queries, data analytics tool queries, to see how we can check and monitor student progress towards their graduation requirements. So let me go to the campus module and we're gonna go ahead and start by going to administrator courses and course type levels. So course type levels, they set the groundwork for tagging or grouping courses that are similar, and they serve a dual purpose. So they can be used for prerequisites when students are selecting courses, and they can also be used for graduation requirements. So when you are setting course type levels, you kind of have to look at your course offerings as a whole, and you have to look at what the requirements are, what the prereqs are, what the graduation requirements are, and based on that you would be creating course types and levels, because types and levels get associated with the courses. So think of course types as the subject area. So in my example, I have like English, history, math, electives, and so forth. And you can think of course level as a number that shows like how advanced a course may be. So you may have like entry-level classes that have a level of 100. Then you may have more intermediate classes that may have a level of 200 and so forth. So some schools, they also abbreviate the type, so it's fine to do that too. So instead of like English 100, you may have ENG 100 or MAT 100 and so forth. So that's typically how many colleges do it. So you can follow that format, or you can write out the full department in the course type. Then based on the course type levels that you associated with the courses, the setup, what it does is that whenever you specify which courses count towards like prerequisites, co-requisites, or graduation rules, you actually specify the types and levels instead of the individual courses. So let's say that, for example, if your school offers 5 different beginner English classes, they may have different teachers or slightly different focuses, but they're all meant to prepare students for the next steps, which may be an intermediate English class. So instead of having to list all 5 courses individually like in your prerequisite requirements, you would just give all of them the same course type and level. So maybe you would give them all a course type and a course type of English and course level of 100. And then your intermediate class would maybe have a course type and level of English 200. So that when you are putting in your prerequisites, you can specify that in order for them to take an intermediate English 200 class, they need to have taken an English 100 level class. Similarly, for graduation requirements, you could either do them like based on individual courses, but most schools, they do graduation requirements based on departments. So your school may have a graduation requirements where a student has to take like 4 credits of English or 4 credits of math, but it may not matter whether the credits are like an English 100 credit or English 200 credit or so forth. So when you're setting up graduation requirements, you could just specify the course type condition and not even specify the course level condition. But if you have requirements that are specific to individual class levels, then you can also specify the course level condition. So in a little bit, when we go through actually configuring the graduation requirements, I'll show you how to do that. So next, let's go to in terms of just creating the types and levels, you just input the type here and the level here. So if you wanted to put like math 100 or math like 500 or any type and level, you would just enter that and click add new, and then it would get created in the system. Then the next step would be to associate the type level with the courses, because as I mentioned, it's the type levels that are taken into account both for graduation requirements, for prerequisites, and even for transfer credits, because a student may be taking a different class than you currently offer, but when you bring in transfer credits, you can still tie them to an existing type and level that matches the classes that are offered in your school. So I'll go ahead and click on courses. And here we have a few courses. So here you can see like I have my Algebra 1 as Math 100 and Algebra 2 as Math 200 and so forth. So to associate type levels to a class, you can just go to the detail screen. And there's a type level field here, so you can just pick from the ones that you would have created earlier in the step and just hit save, and then that course would be associated with that course type and level. So when I set up an example for this webinar, I'm gonna use a Department of English. So let me see what courses I have here. So here I have my English level 100 course, which is Fundamentals of Literature. Then I have my English 200 level course, then I have my English 300 and English 400 level courses. So when I set up my requirements, my goal is to ensure that a student, in order to meet the English requirement, that they have to take 4 credits of English. It doesn't matter if it's level 100, 200, or so forth. I just want to ensure that they take at least 4 credits of English during until the time that they finish their high school. So let me go to creating graduation plans, which are found under Maintenance, Graduation Plans here. So in my example, I have a standard graduation plan and I have a second one called STEM Endorsement Graduation Plan. So you could have as many as needed. So you may have your standard one, then you may have one that's a more advanced level. So whenever you're running the transcript or whenever you're running your DAT queries, you can actually pick which whichever plan that you want to run it for. And to create a plan is straightforward. You just type in the name of the plan and click add new, and it'll create the new plan in the system. So once you have created your course type levels, you've already associated your course type levels to your classes, to your courses, you have your graduation plans. The next step is to create graduation requirements. So those requirements would get associated to a plan, and they would be associated with course types levels, which would create a connection between the requirements and your existing courses. So in order to create the graduation requirements, we go to courses and we click prerequisites. So prerequisite screen is used for both graduation requirements, and is also used for like course selection prerequisites. So you may see some, so here I have some that are for graduation requirements, so I've put in a description that describes them, like I have math requirements for graduation plans, science requirements, and so forth. But then I also have prerequisites for course selections. For example, in order for someone to take an Algebra 2 class, they must have taken a Math 100 class with a final grade of 70 or above. But for this webinar, we're more so focusing on the graduation requirements requisites. So in order to create a requirement, you would just click the new button here, and I'm going to use the English one as an example because I don't have an English one created here. So the name of the prerequisite is important because it's the name that'll show up on the transcript and on the DAT queries. So if you do your graduation requirements based on departments, like by an English department, math department, and so forth, then it would make sense to name it as the name of the department. So I may just make it as English, and then you click add criterion. Now if in your case it doesn't matter what English class that they may take, as long as they meet a certain number of credits, you can just specify the type here. But if the level also matters, then you can pick the level, but otherwise you can just specify the type, which is what I'm going to do in this case. You don't necessarily have to put anything right here for the grade or credits, because when we associate the requirement with the graduation plan that we created earlier, that's where we can specify how many credits they need. So for now, I'm just going to pick the course type of English and hit save. And then in the description, I can put in what this requisite is for. So I can say something like English requirement for graduation plan. I can just put a description here, and then I'll just look at my most recent one here. So I have my English, I have my electives, and so forth. Now I have created my graduation requirements. I have created them for several different departments. But again, if let's say that your school doesn't do it based on departments, if your school does it based on like specific courses, then you can also create requirements for individual courses. Like you may have one called like English Literature and Composition, and in that you may specify a specific type and level for that requirement. And then whenever you associate that with your graduation plan, you can use that particular course indicator instead of the general department name. So let me go to the next step, which is to actually associate the graduation requirements with the graduation plan. So I'm going to go to maintenance, graduation requirements here. And when I come here, there's a graduation plan drop down, and there are a couple of different options that I had created earlier. So I have my standard graduation plan and I have my STEM endorsement graduation plan. For my STEM endorsement one, I want to keep everything the same, except I want students to take 6 credits instead of 4 credits of math and science. So the number of required credits would be different for my STEM endorsement graduation plan as opposed to my standard graduation plan. So the standard one already has elective history, math, science, and world language, and it has the number of credits specified. So if I want to add an English one, I can just come here to the bottom under add requirements. I can select the English one, and then where it says required number of credits, I can pick 4 and click add. So now English is also a requirement for this particular graduation plan. Now if I switch to the STEM one, I actually don't have any requirements tied to it yet. So what I can do is I'll look at my requirements. So here, let me just select. I'll select English, elective, world language, and history. Because these, in my scenario, these require 4 credits, I'll just come here, select 4, and click add. And then for science and math, because they require 6 credits for this STEM endorsement graduation plan, I can come here, pick 6, and click add. So here we can see some have 4, some have 6. So now I've actually associated my graduation requirements to my 2 graduation plans. So the next step is I want to go through how you would enter transfer credits. So if you have a student that is coming from a different school and you want to make sure that they get credit for the classes that they may have taken at a different school, you can actually go to the student and put that credit in their historical marks. So for this example, I'm going to use a student named Greg Delareggi, and I'll go to his details and I'll click historical marks. So let's say that I want to add a new transfer credits. I can come here and select the year, so I'll pick the 25-26 year and click new. Now it'll add a blank record for this year, so then I'll go ahead and click edit. And then I can put in the name of the course. So let's say that he took like an English literature class at a different school. I can put in the school name, so I'll put in like Nimitz High School. The number of terms, so this is a year-long class, and then department, I'll actually put English department. Credits, I'll put 0.5, so half a credit per term. And then this is really important. So type level, this will give us the list that we had created earlier, and that's how the system would actually know what this English literature class, how it connects with the classes that you're offering at your school, like how it's comparable to the classes that you offer. So for English literature, it may be like an English 200 level course. So I'll just select that. And because it's an external credit from an external school, I can check external here. If there's any other information that you want to populate, you can populate that, and then you can put in a grade. Depending on what kind of grades or transcripts that you use, you may be inputting like semester 1 grade, semester 2 grade, a final grade. Or in your configuration, you may be using trimester, so you would put like trimester specific grades. So I'm just going to go ahead and save. So it's been, the credit has been saved now in the system, so that when we run the transcript next, we should be able to see it on the transcript. So now that I have added the credit, let me go to my PDF reports here. And I'm going to run the transcript S1, S2 final because that's the one that's configured for this particular demo school. You'll be picking whichever transcript you use. So there's a show graduation requirement plan here. So I can select the graduation plan that I'd created earlier. So I'm going to start by picking the standard graduation plan, and I'll click request report. So once the report finishes rendering, I can just click download and open the report here. So when we look at the graduation requirements, here we can see that each requirement shows up here. So this is what I was mentioning earlier. This is the name of the prerequisite that we set up earlier. So whatever name you give it there, that's the name that shows up here. Then we have the number of earned credits, and we have the in progress credits. So in progress means what classes that they're currently enrolled in, and then the required comes from the when we associated the graduation requirement to the plan, we have specified the number of credits that are required, so that comes from there. We can also see that our external credit has shown up here, so it shows us Nimitz High School and the English literature, and then we can see that they've received 1 credit for that. So this is how it'll reflect on the transcript. So here I pick the standard plan. If I come here and pick the STEM endorsement plan, then I would expect that the science and math requirements should be 6. So I'm just going to go ahead and open this report up. So here we can see that math and science requirements are 6. So that's how you can configure the different plans and then run them. And this was just an example in terms of like this particular plan has different number of required credits, but your other, like, there could be other graduation plans that may have other requirements, like they have to take a specific type of course, or you may have like some honors requirements where like the student has to meet certain grade requirements, so like they have to get a B plus or higher on like for all of their classes in all departments. So you can actually configure those requirements based on like the number of credits that they need to receive, and then those requirements could also look at like if they have met at least a minimum grade requirement in order to meet the overall graduation plan requirement that you have set up in your school. So the next thing I want to go over are some of the DAT queries so that we can review what the existing queries look like and how you can track how students are doing in terms of their progress towards their graduation requirements. So I'm going to go to the DAT, the data analytics tool. And in the PCR imported group, this is where we deploy standard queries to all of our schools. So you can always come here and see all the standard queries. These should already be available to your school. And then I'm going to search for graduation. So these are 2 different queries that I want to look at. So there's one that's a summary, and then there's one that has details of individual courses. So I'll start by looking at the summary. So this particular report, it shows me the students in my school, and then it shows me the departments or the name of the prerequisite that we set up earlier. So there's elective, history, math, science, and so forth. And then there's the credits earned, credits in progress, required number of credits. And then this query also has credits remaining. So credit remaining is basically it takes a required number and then it subtracts from it the credits earned and the credit in progress. So basically shows how many credits are still remaining for each particular requisite or department. So what you can do with the report like this is that you can actually put conditions to, for example, find students that may not be meeting requirements, for example, in a certain for a certain requirement, such as the math requirement or an English requirement. The way that you can do it is you can go to query, and in the student info, so let's just take a look at an example. Let's say that I want all my 12th graders that are not meeting the math requirement yet. So I want to see like which students still have like 2 or more credits remaining in the math department, especially those students who are in grade 12. So what I can do is I can come to the student info table and I can add a grade level condition. So I can just look for students that are in the grade 12 and click add and hit save. Now, if I open up the graduation requirements table, there are a couple of things that I want to show here. So whenever you're running this report, you can specify which plan that you want to run it for, similarly how we did so on the transcript. So you can pick the graduation plan. If you don't see any fields here, like here I've displayed fields such as credits earned and so forth. If you don't see any of them here, click apply parameters. You have to do that the first time that you're running the report. Also, when you go to this particular table, there's also going to be a second button that'll say refresh parameters, or sorry, refresh data source. And what that does is that when you click on that button, it'll recalculate all the requirements in the progress and the credits, so that when you run the report, it'll be up to date. And you can only do that every few hours. So because I had refreshed a couple hours back, I'm not seeing that button. But if I were to come back and look at this maybe in the next couple of hours, I will see a second button that I can use to recalculate all the graduation requirements. Typically you would just do that if you had made changes to the graduation requirements, or like once the grades have been saved, so the student has like more credits that they have earned. In a scenario like that, you would hit refresh and it'll recalculate the graduation requirements. But I don't think you would have to do that every few hours. You probably would run this like maybe once a week or every few weeks, depending on the season. Okay, so once I'm here, I'm gonna look for any students in the math, I'll call it department, but it's really a prerequisite name that we had set up earlier, in math, who still have 2 credits or more remaining. So in terms of, I can put a condition here and just look for the math department or the math requisite, and now it'll just restrict it to that. And then I can come here to the calculated aggregated field, and I can look for credits remaining and put a condition of 2 or greater and click add, and then let me run the report. So now I'm only seeing my 12th graders that still have 2 or more credits remaining in the math graduation requirement group. So this would be a way for me to easily figure out like which students may be in the danger of falling behind, so that I can connect with them and ensure that they're on track in order to meet their graduation requirements to graduate. The other report that I want to show is the details report. So I'll go back to the DAT, and I'll come back to my PCR imported group and search for graduation. This is the admin graduation requirements details report. So I'm going to go ahead and click open. So it's a report similar to the one that we looked at earlier, except this gives us details of the individual courses. So it basically tells us which courses meet those requirements. So what I'll do is I'll restrict this report to just the student we were looking at earlier, Greg Delareggi, so it'll make things a little bit more easier to understand. So I'm going to go ahead and click query, and I'll open the student info table, and I'll come here and put the student ID of 5021, which is Greg. If I didn't remember the ID, I could have also searched by the student last name, first name, and so forth. So I'm just going to put the student ID and click save, and I'll hit results. So here I can see Greg's record and all the classes that he's taken that meet the requirements for each of those departments or groups. So I have my electives, I have my history, math, science, and world language. You'll notice that English does not show up in this report, and the reason is because I created the English requirement after I had refreshed my graduation requirements 2 hours ago. So because they haven't been refreshed, this is the reason that English doesn't show up here. But next time when I do refresh the graduation requirements, then I would also expect to see English on this report. So that wraps up what I wanted to go through our webinar today. So let me pull up my slideshow, and I can go to the last page. So yeah, if you have any questions in terms of configuring your graduation requirements, feel free to reach out to support@pcreducator.com, or if you want to share your specific requirements with us so that we can help you implement them, or if you have any specific questions about this webinar, just reach out to us and we'll be happy to answer them. And again, this webinar has been recorded, and we'll be posting it to our knowledge base soon. So if you want to review it again later on or share it with your team, you're welcome to do that. And again, thank you everyone for joining me, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.